Hi kids. Welcome to the video that explains the engineering design process. Many of you have been looking at this for the past couple weeks, months, depending on where we're at in this process. And I may have even referred to it a couple of times to help you understand what it means to be an engineer. Well, anyways, this is the engineer design process. And you'll see that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. A couple things that you want to keep in mind is that there are many ways of explaining the engineering design process, but these steps are the basic 5 steps that an engineer will take when they are designing, inventing, improving an invention or something that they built or intend to build, okay? So anyways, the first step is to ask. You ask what the problem is and you define what the constraints are. You might already know what constraints mean, but constraints have to do with the time you can put into building it and manufacturing it, the money it will cost, what kind of materials you'll be able to use. Those are all constraints, and they have a lot to do with the problem, and then going into the next step, which is brainstorming or choosing a solution. When you brainstorm, you're coming up with an idea for a problem to solve it, and usually you're taking into account these constraints so that when you imagine and brainstorm an idea, it is practical and you can apply it, make it work. So once you've asked the question and you've imagined possible solutions, you then make a plan and you draw it out. Okay, you make a materials list and that sort of thing. You are probably noticing at this point in the enrichment, I'm oftentimes asking you to make a list of your materials, and to be accurate, I'm asking you to figure out a cost of your materials. That's all part of this planning, and it's all part of this engineering design process, okay? So once you have an idea of what you want to do to solve the problem, and you've made a plan, a list of materials, and you've drawn it up, and you know exactly what you want to do and not waste any time, then you get to create. You get to make it and try it out. See how it actually works for you, okay? Now, once you try it out, chances are it might not do what you want it to do, which is often the case when you're building something brand new with a lot of moving parts. So then you go into this step, you make it better, and you improve it. Sometimes it may work just fine, but you look at it and you think, geez, we can make it better if we do this or we do that, okay? So then you would go back and you'd say, okay, well, what is the problem we want to improve upon? What are the constraints? And then you go through the process again, okay? So the engineering design process has 5 steps. They are ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. Now, depending on what you're doing as an engineer, you might jump in at any point in this process, okay? But I want to point out a couple things to you from a practical point of view that kind of resonate with young kids and kids in the 6th grade and you guys when you're building projects. Like this video is associated with the slow-going car project, okay? And probably what you've realized is that this car is slow going, okay? So one of the things that you would want to do is say, well, how can I make this better? Okay, and you think about possible solutions, okay? And then make a list of the materials that you would need to implement that solution. Now, if you're at this point, you have already earned some extra parts, or you're going to earn some extra parts as a result of this video. So that would play into what kind of plan you're going to make for improving this. Now, this is the slow-going car, so your plan to improve it will probably be making it go faster, okay? So you would drop a plan, think of a design, and then start building. Don't just start building, really think. And then see if your improvement worked, and then ask if you need to change it again, okay? So anyways, couple things that I want to give you a heads up on, okay? Because there's certain things that happen along the way here. Asking the question, usually I will give you a question or a problem to solve, And then you'll have to go on to the imagining and that sort of thing, and figuring it out, working together with each other, and really listening. Um, this part right here is usually the ignored part. Okay, usually when we're in school doing STEM and STEAM activities, we kind of bypass this plan, but you should always make a really good detailed plan and really organize your thoughts if you want to improve something or invent something and have it work relatively well the first time. Okay, but this plan is usually ignored. This part of the process is usually ignored. Don't ignore it, because this part makes this part easier. This creating part is what we typically think of as the fun part, the building, the getting into it. But in STEM and in the engineering design process, you don't just freely build and create. You actually have a plan based on an idea, based on a problem that you want to solve, okay? Now, the most frustrating thing is the improvement part. You know, once you get it built, it may not work. And sometimes it takes quite a bit to tweak it. You'll probably recall one of the first machines you built in here that had the rubber band on it, and the rubber band would turn and pop off. Well, that gets really frustrating. And that rubber band has to stay on there, so you have to constantly improve and tweak and play around. This part can really set you back in terms of time and getting something done, okay? But if you reach this point and things aren't working and you can't get it to work, maybe what you need to do is ask yourself, what's the problem? Imagine solutions, and then make a plan, draw it out, and really think your way through it, and then recreate it and see if you have improved it. All right, so anyways, that's the engineer design process. There's 5 steps: ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. All right, good luck with your next project.